Alright, guys. Sorry for all the noise. Welcome back to the pod. Outside, trying to get some air and sun. A little bit of sun rays peeking out in the clouds. The four assumptions, the third agreement the four agreements, not the four assumptions. The four agreements. The third agreement, which is don't make assumptions, pages 67, 68, 69, and 70. Chapter 4. So this section starts talking about examples of how a lot of times people have assumptions, and that's where a lot of disagreement and disappointment comes from, is people assuming that what somebody did say or didn't say implies one thing or another thing. And our brains just automatically do this. Our brains try to make it easy for us to they try to make it easy for us to kind of do stuff, so our brains try to make it so we're not deeply processing every single thing. It tries to make a lot of things, especially routine things, automatic. So that's why when you're working or something, say you try a new job or a new task, it's a little slower, and then you get into a rhythm of it, and then you just can kind of flow and do it, right? Just automatically. Eventually, most job skills and things are like that. But if you compare your first day on a job or your first day doing anything, for example, I was recently learning this free software program called what's it called? Cut, not Final Cut Pro. That's legit, real good software. It was called, I can't remember because it's pretty new to me. CapCut. So CapCut is a software that you can use to edit videos, and I was making short form content for TikTok and Instagram, and I'm not used to making those kind of, or for YouTube as well. I'm not used to making that kind of stuff. So when I made my initial video, it took a while, but then I was able to just bang out a couple right after that. Same thing with when I first learned how to write. The most recent type of SEO blog post. It took me a while to kind of get a rhythm into what do I put here, what kind of title, what kind of headline, where do I put these pictures, where do I find the pictures, and then all these different things I had to log into. And then after a while, you kind of have a rhythm. It's you click on this tab and go do this, and you click on that tab and go do that, and you kind of just get a natural rhythm to it, and it becomes pretty automatic, and you're not really having to think in such detail, what do I click next? Oh, I have to click here, and then what do I go, and then going back to the reference guide, and then reading what it says, or going back through notes or back through lectures. You just kind of have it down, right? And I feel in our social lives, socially, our brains kind of do the same things too. It's just if somebody says this, it means that. If somebody doesn't say something about this, it means that. I can give an example about assumptions. So I don't know, this is a bad example, but I don't know, I get kind of embarrassed easily about kind of certain types of stuff that I would prefer they would happen in a private environment or just with like close friends. And so I was in this work setting once where I worked with like I was in an RA position, and I had a cohort member who was close to me, and you know, she was in my classes a lot and stuff too, and kept like telling me, hey, you should apply to work as an RA on campus because you get your own dorm, you get your own, you know, they pay for the food, you just have, it's easy, you just have to do this kind of thing. And then like the job description is not that hard, you can still go to school, you can still do your practicum, and you know, basically you get your own dorm room and you don't have to have roommates, so you get your own privacy. And I had roommates, and I was kind of like, I was always like, I don't like living with roommates, I want to have my own place. And so she kind of did me a solid and kind of tipped me off about that job. And you know, we would sit together in class and stuff, but like we have different, I don't want to say love languages, like our relationship wasn't like that, but like we had, like, I guess we'll call it love languages. Like she didn't really care much for quality time with people. She was nice, and you know, she might go out hiking or go to the gym or go to go hike, go to the gym, go to like dinner on occasion, but like, you know, like it was really hard to get her to go out and do stuff. And I don't know, like when I think back, I'm like, well, maybe she just didn't have the money, but I feel like I was always used to living differently. And like, if like I want to hang out with people, like I want to see them, like, you know, usually I consider people close friends if we are doing that, we're talking, we see each other. Like her, it was like, yeah, I'd see you in class, but it was all work, you know, it was all like busy. And then like we started working together at this RA position, and it was her. I befriended, you know, some other people who were on that job who weren't our bosses. We were all kind of like the same level of RAs. I think the others had more experience than me, but you know, I did good on the job, and you know, I was a worker like everybody else. And the bosses were there, and they were pretty chill, but you know, I like to have a separation of like my friends and the things we do together. I don't really want my bosses knowing about, oh, I was out drinking or like playing video games or doing this or that. Like, I don't really want my bosses to know what I do on my free time. I like my privacy about stuff. And so once this lady in front of the group of like all the staff, like after one of the meetings, she said something like oh, we're besties. And like, I don't remember, I think it was because the terms were changing because the school had all these like budget changes, and it was changing from being like a non-profit to a for-profit school, and then a lot of changes were happening. So I think the dorms were becoming like they were renting them out, and so they didn't want the RAs the next term to have like full rooms to themselves. You would have to share a unit, and I didn't want to share. I was like, well, if I'm going to be here sharing a unit, that's smaller than sharing an apartment, because I feel like there's not enough privacy, there's not enough like, you know, the cohort, like they're on campus, you know, we have classes. If I want to have people over, and I know she didn't like having people over, and I saw how she lived with someone else, and she had just like so much stuff. And so when they announced in that meeting that like the RAs were then going to have to share rooms for the next term, and they wouldn't have their own private full dorm. Like the dorms had like a living room that was shared, a bathroom that was shared, and then 2 private bedrooms on opposite sides. And basically the options were for residents to share, like you could have 2 people per bedroom, or 1 person per bedroom, or 2 in one bedroom and 1 in one bedroom, or have the whole thing to yourself and basically have 2 full bedrooms and a living room and bathroom to yourself. And there was no kitchen, but people had little like setups, little kitchenettes that they set up and stuff. or you could use one of the buildings that had like a stove, an oven, a fridge. You could store and label your food for like the week or whatever, but and then go in and cook. So basically, like, we were able to, learn that the new position, I would no longer have a private dorm. And the whole reason I liked that job is because I had my own private room. And so, my own private space, like, I didn't want to share. And so I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, if I have to share with her, like, there was some person I was kind of like into on campus that, like, I didn't really want her knowing about that. And then, I didn't want to invite over some of my other friends because, like, me and her, we didn't really hang out like that. Like, I was still kind of, like, not too open with her about my life a lot because I didn't really know her, because we never hardly hung out. We hung out a few times, but not much. So I felt like I couldn't really trust her enough to, like, live with her in such close quarters. And so, in the meeting, after that meeting, I remember we're all standing up and we're about to leave, and she's like, oh, bestie, it'll be so nice if you stay and we could be like, I'm so glad because we're besties and we're gonna be able to share an apartment. And I just didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. I was like, the whole time they were announcing all this stuff, I was just thinking, like, okay, well, I guess this is it for me with this job. I'm just gonna quit because, I still had an apartment that I could rent out with one roommate. And I was like, I'd rather rent the space with the one roommate in a classic apartment versus share the campus dorms with somebody, who's in my cohort. And, I just didn't really trust her too much. And so I was like, let me just not share with her, I didn't really want to share with her after that, share a room with her after that or anything. I was not into that idea, and so I just didn't say anything. And she the point is, like, she assumed that because I didn't say anything that, like, I didn't feel like we were besties or I didn't want to live with her. And that's true, though. That is true. But I wasn't trying to be, like, mean. It was just kind of like, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, we're besties if we're not. And I didn't know that she felt that way about me. I didn't know that she felt like we were really that close. And so I was a little taken aback, and then it was a little embarrassing because she said it in front of, like, everybody. And then she made a big deal that I didn't make a comment, and she said that in front of everybody. So I felt, like, really on the spot, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe this is happening, like, in the middle of, like, a work meeting. And I'm just like, oh my god. And so I don't know. I try not to be too, like, I don't know. I wasn't trying to be hurtful or anything, but, like, I was trying to be honest, and it was just kind of like, I don't want to mislead somebody and be like, oh yeah, I want to live with you when I don't, or oh yeah, like, we're besties when, like, we're not. It's like, I don't dislike her. At the time, I considered her a good friend, pretty close friend, because we had moved to the same city at the same time, and she was, like, doing me a solid, and she was nice. Like, we got along good and stuff. But I don't know, I didn't really, like, confide in her about stuff or, like, open up to her about different things. Like, she wasn't really, like, easy to be vulnerable with. I didn't really, like, trust her with my, life choices, or, like, run things by her or anything. So I was kind of, like, confused as to, like, why she considered us to be so close. But I wouldn't say we weren't close at all, but it's like I had other friends that I was way closer to than her. And so yeah, it was kind of awkward and embarrassing. And I don't remember what I said. I said something kind of neutral to kind of diffuse the whole thing, just to kind of make sure she wasn't, like, I was just kind of like, no, I just feel like you kind of put me on this, like, I kind of feel, like, put on the spot, and, like, wasn't really expecting to, like, talk about it, or, like, I'm not used to talking about this kind of stuff, like, I kind of said it like that. And I mean, it's kind of the truth, but I mean, I was like, kind of like, I'm kind of embarrassed, like, that's why I didn't say anything. But I mean, she was right, though. Like, that wasn't the only thing. It was more so, like, I didn't really feel similarly. I was, like, disappointed in that meeting. I was, like, not by her, but I was disappointed by the news, because I was, like, at least You know, I mean, I like having my own space. I don't like sharing houses or apartments or anything. I don't like to. I like my privacy. When I have my friends over, I don't want other people overhearing my conversations with people. When I'm on the phone, I don't want people overhearing my conversations with people. When I'm podcasting, I don't want people involved in it. Or if I'm making video content, I don't want people involved. Um, you know, I walk around the house like I don't really need to be fully clothed all the time. Like I don't really like to always have like other people involved um, like that unless I want to develop that relationship with them. But with her, I didn't really want to develop it. Um, and we, you know, it was kind of like, you know, I am close with people, but it's like I have to know that like they actually want to be around me, actually want to talk to me. I'm not good with like forming deeper connections with people who just like don't hang out or don't communicate. Like it's kind of my own thing. It's like, you know, I was kind of raised by a pretty distant adult family. Like, you know, they were never really like too emotionally available or too like attuned to my needs, or you know, I wouldn't say I was like neglected, but for what I know I needed, I wasn't really getting that from the adults in my life, and I wasn't really getting it from you know, like socially I wasn't really getting, you know, I gotta open this door, it's hot in here. I wasn't really getting what I needed fully, and like I did have people in my life that I felt like, you know, they kind of like maybe they gave me money or something, but you know, they were never really like able to communicate with me too good, or like, you know, didn't seem like they ever really wanted to like hang out or do stuff. They were just like, oh, here's some money, like go out with your friends, or like, you know, here's some money, like, you know, or here's a thing that we bought you or whatever. But, you know, sometimes I was like, man, it would be cool to like go out to the movies as a family, or go, you know, do certain stuff together, or like talk. And like I didn't really grow up around people who were like into that. And I'm not saying I like rely on my friends to have to do that, but it's like I always kind of valued the relationships I had where people were like into hanging out and wanted to like talk about stuff or whatever. And you know, so when I meet people and they're not really into like hanging out or doing stuff or meeting up or talking either on the phone or ever, you know, it kind of makes me not really too interested to try to, you know, stay engaged with them, because I'm like, well, I feel like they just don't care, you know. And that's not the case, you know. It's not like, I feel like most people don't really want to be like on the phone or texting a lot. Most people don't really want to be talking all the time. A lot of people kind of, especially nowadays, it's really hard to like hang out with the expense of everything. But yeah, I definitely noticed that that was some of the ways I felt that I had coming up. And yeah, definitely like I'd say the privacy is a big thing for me. Like I'm not really um into a lot of people publicly knowing how I feel about someone, like um all the time, unless I want people to know that. Um uh, so another, I guess quickly, another interesting sentence, page 69 says, um, you know, we also make assumptions about ourselves, and this creates a lot of inner conflict. There's a quote that's kind of like, I think I am able to do this. you make this assumption, for instance, then you discover you aren't able to do it. You overestimate or underestimate yourself because you haven't taken the time to ask yourself questions and to answer them. Perhaps you need to gather more facts about a particular situation, or maybe you need to stop lying to yourself about what you truly want. I don't know, but yeah, that's another way to look at assumptions. So that's all for this episode about that topic. About for this few pages, anyways. We're not done with the book yet. So, alright, guys, with that, thanks for listening.